November 5th is an intense day for millions of Americans who are going to be voting for Democratic nominee Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump. It's been a knife-edge race in several states. In the battleground states, which will play a pivotal role in deciding the result, the polling margins between Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump are razor thin. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both held competing rallies across Pennsylvania, making their final pitches in the key swing states as polls indicate an extremely close contest. Despite all the efforts made under the US system, it is not the national popular vote that decides who becomes president, but a 538-member electoral college in which each state gets as many electors as their representation in the Congress. The 2024 US presidential election campaign has been a long and volatile one. After two assassination attempts on Trump and incumbent President Joe Biden's dramatic decision to leave the race in August, it is entirely possible that this election will throw up more big surprises. Well, there are three broad possibilities for what just might happen on election day. Possibility 1, the return of Trump. A deeply polarizing figure, Trump could make history and win back the White House. Only Grover Cleveland has managed to get elected a second time as president in 1892 after suffering a defeat 4 years earlier. Well, the economy has been the number one issue for voters this time around, and while unemployment is low, the stock market has been booming. Most Americans say that they are struggling with higher prices every day. Despite the fallout from the 6 January 2021 riot at the US Capitol, a string of indictments, scams, and an unprecedented criminal conviction, Donald Trump surprisingly has dominated American politics for 9 long years, and his support has only remained stable for all year at 40% or above. And most Republicans do agree when Trump says he's the victim of a political witch hunt. On issues, while Democrats will be hoping it's abortion, Trump is betting on immigration. The former president sees his unpredictability as a strength and refreshing and points out that no major war started when he was in the White House. And with both sides so dug in, he just needs to win over enough of the small slice of undecided voters without a fixed view of him. Then is the possibility to Harris making history. If Kamala Harris does win, she will not only beat Donald Trump, but will become the first woman and woman of color to win the US presidency. Like Trump, if Kamala Harris does win, it will likely be through one or more of the battleground states, in particular Pennsylvania and Georgia. For Kamala Harris, victory will likely come via high turnout by women and voters of color, particularly the African Americans, or through a combination of a turnout by this core Democratic base and swing voters in key states like Pennsylvania. Through the election campaign, Kamala Harris has played up the fear factor about Trump's return. She's called him a fascist and a threat to democracy while vowing to move on from drama and conflict. More importantly, this is the first presidential election since the US Supreme Court overturned the Roe versus Wade and a constitutional right to an abortion. Harris is a clear champion of women's rights and has been advocating for reproductive health access while addressing maternal mortality disparities. Voters who are concerned about protecting abortion rights overwhelmingly back Kamala Harris. And we've also seen in the past elections, notably the 2022 midterms, that this issue can drive turnout and have a real impact on the result. And when it comes to spending power in the US elections, Harris is right there on top. Possibility 3, an election too close to call. Well, it's such a tight race that the margins in the battleground states are in thousands of votes or even less. If it is that close, counting could take days. In the event of a close margin, it's also possible that some states just might go to a recount. While conspiracies abound, a delay in the result like this would be entirely predictable and a normal outcome. In the United States, there isn't just one system for counting the votes. Elections are run by the states on a county-by-county basis, and each state does it very differently. So what happens if neither Kamala Harris or Donald Trump secures the necessary electoral college majority to win this US election? Though very unlikely, this scenario does remain a possibility, adding to the anxiety of Americans. If both Harris and Trump fail to secure the majority of 270 electoral votes, the US Constitution stipulates that Congress would step in to decide the outcome. In this case, The newly elected House of Representatives would select the president in January, while the Senate will be choosing the vice president. However, a longer delay to the US election results will elevate the already very real risk of further political violence and instability in the United States. What happens next in America depends on the movement and interplay of just so many tangled threads and scenarios that it is impossible to predict which way the election goes.